most people can't just take off and move to a new state anymore when you get divorced. Like, it's not as easy when I was growing up, or sounds like when you were growing up. Like, people just can't do that now. It's very hard to leave the state. So that's super interesting. So tell me a little bit more about that experience of living in a different state, and with now your dad has another woman in his life.
So the interaction with my stepmom in the beginning was not great for everyone all around. I think that there was a lot of emotional turmoil that my mother was experiencing with the loss of an entire family that she had put together as a stay-at-home mom. And, my father is in a very high profession, very well known and, very prestigious. And I think that leading into that transition, it could have definitely been handled better. I do wish that there was a little bit more of an opportunity to have a conversation about introducing a new woman into our lives. It wasn't a smooth transition. There were a lot of fights, a lot of pushback, especially as a 14-year-old girl trying to find myself, and now having some woman telling me that I'm grounded, that I had never been grounded before. And it was because I had gone from a friend's house in a neighborhood to another friend's house, which I did all the time in North Carolina, but I had no idea that was a new rule. So for me, it was a whole different household, a whole different set of rules. And I think that really weighed on myself in a lot of ways and really made me kind of hate myself, because I wasn't the good kid that I had always been. And it wasn't that I wasn't being good. It's just I had all of these new requirements and restrictions that were not really well communicated to me. I do have stepbrothers. I don't really speak to them very often. And, it just wasn't really a situation that contributed to having a very strong, cohesive adjustment for all of us. And I think that, it's always easy to look back and go, oh, we could have done this differently or this differently. That's something that'll never happen. But for anybody out there that is contemplating divorce and introducing somebody new to your kids, I just suggest to kind of give it time. I mean, if you're going to be together the rest of your lives, what's the rush? Make sure your kids are feeling okay about the divorce before you go, hey, here's somebody new that's going to be telling you what to do. And because of my father's career and everything that he does, if you're listening, I love you, Dad. I think that she kind of took over the reins of the household to kind of be present, since she wasn't as in a demanding position as him. And I think that was a really big opportunity for a lot of power struggles, especially because, my mom couldn't be there and she was going through her own things and realizing and mourning and grieving the loss of her whole entire family. So there's always a good in every situation. I moved out there with the idea of getting my license sooner, whereas in North Carolina, it was going to kind of be delayed based on getting my permit. And I really wanted to drive. Living with my dad in his house in Oregon, there was a pool and it was a great place. I could go to public school. I was in a private school in North Carolina. And, I was ready for an adventure, and I was ready to take on shifting and moving across the country to kind of see what would be offered. And I think it was good and bad, just like every situation that we come across in life. I think that the involvement of my stepmom, although she was probably trying her best, I think that it could have been handled in such a better way, and allowing my dad to be the parent instead of trying to be that parent and not really knowing us, our history, how we had been raised. There were conversations putting my mother down because she really struggled with the loss of everything. I mean, I can only imagine now that I'm an adult how hard it was for her to have a bustling, chaotic household with children and activities and errands and cooking dinners, to silence and being in a home by herself that she had to basically get rid of all of our entire childhood and move the house because my dad had already moved on. And I think there was a lot of heartbreak there. It's unfortunate that it happened, but it did turn me into the woman I am today. And I am grateful for that. I think that now that we're all older and it's been, over 23 years, we are all finding our way with the relationships and what we want from them, and trying to find a way to be a family. But unfortunately, there are two factions of my family. There's my dad's family and there's my mom's family. We do family beach trips and my mom goes to those. And if we were to ever invite my dad, I don't think my mom would come. My sister got married and it was very awkward to have both parents at the wedding because they just won't speak to one another. There's so much heartache and so much heartbreak there. And it was very tumultuous. Even now, after all this time, I do know that we hope that they will find a way to at least speak to one another and maybe work through what happened and find common ground, because, there's grandbabies and maybe there'll be more grandbabies. And so it's just kind of like, for anybody listening, even though you are getting divorced, if you have children together, you're going to be talking to them for the rest of your lives. I'm sorry to say, but you're not going to just divorce your ex and move on with your life and never have to interact with them again. And, you know, I'm the product of that as well. You know, I've seen it, and I have to, you know, work around it. We do wish our parents could be together and enjoy vacations with us and just find that common ground like other parents have been able to do. But unfortunately, that's just not the case for us.